I'm Kathy Clare. I'm Peter Clare's mother, and I'm going to share what I witnessed on August 8th, 2018. Neighbor Ralph came to my door. He said something about Peter walking naked. I stepped out, and the mail truck was in front of my trailer. She also said something about Peter walking naked. If you look at page 3 on that report, the top picture, I looked down there and I didn't see Peter. Ralph said he was laying on the road, got up, and walked away like a zombie. And there are his clothes. I turned around and I saw his clothes and one shoe laying on the ground. And that's when it hit me, he had a seizure. So I went over and picked up the clothes and the shoe, and the cab driver yelled out, "Are you going to help him?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you need someone to come?" And I said, "No, he had a seizure." There was a speaker on the cab council, and I heard a woman's voice say, "Are you sure you don't need someone to come?" I said, "Yes, I'm sure. He had a seizure." The rocks were hurting my feet, and so I went in and put on thongs, and I left with his pants in my hand. And when I came back out, in the picture, if you look like down by the brown fence, I saw him just this side of the brown fence walking this way. There was something completely dark right here. His whole area looked dark. When I got closer, I realized it was completely bloodied and swollen. And I also noticed on the left-hand side where the mail truck was now, the mail carrier was just standing there watching us. As I approached Peter, I said, "Are you okay, Peter?" twice, and there was no reply. When I got to him, which is also in the picture, you'll see the red line. It shows where we finally met. I said, "Peter, you've had a seizure." He mumbled something about going for a walk. I got behind him and I bent down and I said, "We've got to put on your pants." And he lifted up his foot, and he helped me as I put his pant leg on. And then the foot that had a shoe on, he was the one that pulled it back and forth until it broke through the shoe and we got his pants up. He said something about going for a walk, and I said, "Peter, you've had a seizure." And I put my arm around his waist, and as he walked, I just sort of nudged him until we walked all the way back to where I got him to sit on his bed. I stood in front of him, and he kept trying to get up. He's got to take out the garbage. He's got to go for a walk. And I'd said, "No, you can't go. You've had a seizure." He put both slippers on the shoeless foot. I took them off. After a few minutes, he became aware again, and I explained the seizure to him. I then saw 3 cans of Red Bull, and I learned later he drank a can of Red Bull by the bus stop. So certainly he has a seizure disorder, and he's had seizures in public just from the disorder, but drinking that much Red Bull in a short period of time would have caused a really bad seizure, and I think it was the cause that morning. He had dirt on his forehead, and he went and washed it off, and his nose looked broken, and I thought, okay, we've had a seizure, and it was horrible, and don't drink the Red Bull. About 30 to 40 minutes later, the police came. A lot of police came. They treated Peter with disdain and contempt. They wouldn't listen to anything I had to say. After about 30 minutes, one of them, Officer Weingrad, came over and said, "Peter, 2 weeks ago, had ran around the trailer court naked, just like today, and he had shown a 14-year-old his penis." And I said, "That's a lie." And Peter said something similar. Weingrad walked away. Officer Hancock was still there, and I said, "Rochelle's behind this lie." Officer Hancock said, "We can't tell you because you'll want to get revenge." So then Weingrad came over a little bit later and said, "We're going to arrest Peter." Peter went over to sign the ticket. During the time the police were there, I saw the cab return with Ralph. They had gone to do errands. And so I walked over to Ralph's to find out what had happened prior to him coming and getting me and telling me about Peter walking naked. I had seen the cab driver and Weingrad talk for a while. I was shocked the way the cab driver looked at me, like a face of horror. I was wondering what Weingrad had said about Peter. Ralph had said prior to getting me, the cab driver had called him over and pointed to the ground. Peter was laying naked on the ground, and he wanted to know if he knew who he was so they could get him help. Peter all of a sudden got up, Ralph said, and walked off like a zombie. At that time, I said, did the police talk to you? And he said, no. Officer Reingrad and Peter walked over. I said, why didn't you interview Ralph? He said, we don't interview everyone. And he told me when the ticket court date was, and he told me the ticket was in Peter's pocket. And then the policeman left, and basically that's what I witnessed that day.